Namaste to all the audience who are watching our podcast, Championing Change. Today, we have a very inspiring guest with us, Mr. Richard Rochefort from Canada. Thank you for being with us today. So, can you please let us know about your journey, which is very inspiring?
Well, thank you so much for having me on a topic that is near and dear to my heart, championing change. For those of you who've never met me, my name is Richard Rochefort. I'm French-Canadian, and I live near the capital city of Ottawa, Canada. And my journey goes back to 1977 when I started in the Public Service of Canada, where I served for 35 years. I worked in 13 federal departments and agencies, and some people said, Richard, he cannot keep a job. But that's not true. I was always sent to the front line when there was change, big transformation. And over time, what happened to me is I became very interested in not only change, but how to accelerate change, how to make it possible to change. So I became very interested in number one, leadership development, and number two, learning. And I ended my career in 2012 as the vice president, head of all the learning programs for the Public Service of Canada. So that's 240,000 men and women who serve our country every day. And I was in charge of the school that taught them everything they need to know to do their work well, and as well to lead change and transformation.
Oh, nice.
So that's my journey.
And I think you also initiated a company by yourself now?
Yes, so since I retired, you see, I've got to tell you, I'm a big supporter of public service. I believe honestly that country that wants to do well needs to have a strong public sector. So since 2012, I've continued on to be supportive of the next generation of leaders as a coach, as a trainer, as a mentor, and helping with strategies on leadership development and learning as well. So that's been my journey in a nutshell.
Richard, it's very nice to hear about your journey.
Thank you.
So we can see you have a lot of experience in capacity building, different type of stakeholders, government officials, corporate, development professionals. So with this experience, we want to hear from you. What do you think are the common myths the organization leaders hold about the capacity building? And then what makes you worry about the approaches these leaders are following in the capacity building sector?
Well, I had the opportunity to work in Canada, but I've also worked in many other countries in capacity building and learning and development. And the first thing I want to say is that I've got 4 headlines for the myths. The first one is that training equals capacity building. And we keep focusing on attendance at training. That equals capacity building. When, as you know, it's not, okay? It doesn't guarantee anything. And we made a shift in Canada from the word training to learning to expand the horizon, because training was seen only in the classroom, very formal, etc. From my experience, you don't build a ton of capacity through simply training people in a classroom. It doesn't do the trick. So that's one myth, that training equals capacity building. The second myth is that you can create a workshop. A workshop will create change. It does not create change, okay? It's a process, but we keep treating capacity building as an event. We bring people together to train them, and we treat it as an event, and that's not what it is. It's a process, and it starts with awareness building. It then goes to reinforcement and practice and doing, and it's a cycle. But we treat it often, a course, whoa, a guest speaker, etc. And we expect right away, the senior leaders are there. Have the people changed? And you find that they haven't changed. So that's the second myth I would like to bring to your attention. The third myth is that learning is the responsibility of human resources. It's not part of the manager's job. Yet I don't see a more important role for a manager and leader than to grow their people. But we treat it like human resource function. And that's something that we need to change as well. And the final thing I'd like to say is that we tend to try one shoe fits all. Same training for everybody, independent of their role in the organization, the context, or their capacity to absorb the training. And that's, again, a mistake. So those are the four myths.
You mean to say it's not a role-relevant topic?
Exactly. So now you ask me, what am I most worried about? Now I'm going straight to 2026. We're in 2026. My biggest worry is time for learning. The world is going faster and faster. In the last 50 years, we used to spend 2 weeks to answer a letter. Now, even when you receive an email, if you don't respond immediately, the person will call you and say, what's wrong with you? You haven't answered. It's been 3 minutes. People have less of a tolerance for waiting for anything anymore. So there's never enough time, and there's a lot of work, and the pace is faster and faster. And learning is still seen as a nice to do, as opposed to a must do. So my number one worry is time for learning. I'm also concerned, I must say, with how technology is being used for learning. I was hoping that technology would actually shorten the curve of learning, okay? But I find that we took what was going on in a classroom and we put it online. And to me, that's not what should have happened. And now there are some pockets of fantastic innovation that are coming, and I see high potential in AI as well for the learning, etc. But there's a lot of work to do to really, really make maximum use of what the machine can do for you and what the people can do for you. And then another concern I have is we still operating, capacity is supply driven. So in other words, what courses exist? Now let's send people on a course. Okay, that's still, I know because managers have conversations and I've tapped into those, that's what goes on. That's not the right approach. The right approach is what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then make the learning fit that, not the other way around. So those are some of the big things I'm kind of worried about.
I think, Richard, you have said very good, important 2 points.
Yes.
One is about the time for learning,
Yes.
and second thing is the digital learning.
Yes.
Please help us to understand how individuals or organizations should allocate the required timing for learning. What will be the best strategy? And second thing, you said digital. The digital, now it's a digital world. Everybody is trying to do online meetings, online trainings. So what will be the best method of designing and delivering or attending the digital learning platforms?
Okay, well, let's go back to time for learning. Okay, you can't expect people to take a magic pill and all of a sudden they understand how something works.
Yeah.
So you need to create time and space for learning. Okay, and sometimes that's not necessarily at their desk. That's having to go somewhere and be together with others in order to learn. So time for learning simply means that when you're planning out a week or you're planning out a month, that you actually reserve time that is non-negotiable for learning. And it does not have to be always synchronous. In other words, it doesn't have to be everybody together at the same time, because that's very hard to do. It can be individual time, it can be peer, but there needs to be a conscious effort in allocating the hours of work to dedicate to learning, and not say that if we have time, because it's always we ran out of time and we wish we could. No, that should be top of mind. If you want to be the best, you need to make time for learning. Now, to your question about the digital, okay, there are some great things happening.
Yeah.
And you know what happened during the pandemic? Everybody had to deal digitally with others. And that's when I saw some innovation taking place. And the kind of innovation I'm talking about, using the platforms like Zoom and others, I mean, you can do breakout rooms, you can do live polling, you can do, there's many things you can do. You can use the chat room, okay? That's a magnificent feature, en passant, the chat room. And while you're talking, you see there's a big difference between the classroom. When there's a classroom, the teacher is in front, the students are there, and everybody has to listen to the teacher. They're not allowed to talk to each other. That's impolite. But in digital learning, while the teacher is talking, the students are talking to each other, and they're chatting with each other. That's a huge advantage, because then that's how learning happens, you see, through contact. So you can interest and engage. And another thing is, there's cameras. Well, I mean, I find it very difficult to teach when everybody turns their camera off. And I'm speaking to just a bunch of letters on the screen. That's not very conducive to learning. But when the cameras are on and the people are engaged, you don't have to be physically present. You can see in their eyes that they're learning, that they're engaged, etc. So to maximize the use of the technology and not simply take the PowerPoint presentation and read it out loud to people like a lecture, you have to rethink your way. But there's high potential. I'm just finding, though, that many of the programs I've attended or I've seen still just take the old way and just digitized it. And that's not, to me, the best way forward.
Can I ask one more question about the same thing? Today, organizations, be it a corporate or a NGO or government, sometimes, they worry about allocating budgets, thinking it's an expense.
Yes.
Is it an expense or an investment?
Well, you've given the answer. What you need to do with learning is see it as part of an investment strategy. Just like you have an investment portfolio, if you treat learning like an investment. And so I worked in a very, very large government department. And I had the finance people breathing down my neck. Every cent I spent, they said, was a cost. I said, no, it's an investment fund.
Yeah.
I was able to pool all the money that people were spending on training and development and put it in a LIF. It was called Learning Investment Fund. And I created a board that met every 2 weeks for many years and made decisions about how we would spend this money together. Before, each little manager was spending money, and the left hand had no idea what the right hand was doing. And at the end of the year, they spent many, many dollars by pooling the money, treating it like a learning investment fund, setting up a learning investment fund board. What you then get is strategic learning. And we were able to get, I'm serious, 10 times more programs, more results than anything that had been previously done. So if you start to see it not as a cost, but as an investment, it changes your mindset. And I think that's the way forward. Those are the leading companies, the leading NGOs, and the leading federal and provincial governments.
So what do you think are the best approaches that leadership should adapt in promoting the leadership and capacity building in the organizations?
Okay, my first point on that is start with a real problem or a real challenge and work back from that in designing the learning, okay? Because we tend to be a push mentality, okay? So what needs to happen is you need to actually try and be 2 steps ahead. The problem with learning is it's always 10 steps behind. The course arrives after the need is gone, and a new need arises. Needs change all the time. So if the people working in learning and development are not just called in, can you throw me some training on top of that? Many times I've been called into a meeting and my leader says, listen, we've already decided this and that about this program. Can you make me a training course now to fit that? I say, how come I'm only being involved now? I should be involved as soon as the idea came forward. I should be part of the table, you see? And I should try and design based on the challenge that we're facing. So that to me is such a mission critical thing, and probably the most important thing I'd like to say in answer to that question.
So another question is investing in individuals. How does that really help organization to become a strong organization?
So there's 2 things I want to say about that. First, I want to talk about the word team. I believe NGOs, even corporates, it's a team sport. A team sport, okay? And team for me is an acronym for together everyone achieves more. In my 35 years of service, in my 35 years working on championing change, any great result was obtained by working together collaboratively as one team with one mission, okay? Now, somebody, in fact, it was an American coach of football said one time, there is no I in team. Well, I beg to differ. There is no team without everybody contributing individually, okay? So when you wake up in the morning, you decide personally if you're going to be part of a team or not, okay? And if you decide to be part of the team, then there will be a team. If you decide not, there won't be. And the training or the learning that you give to an individual will inevitably find its way in the team, especially if that participant is a team player, shares the learning. I'm tired of sending people to conferences in Harvard and everywhere all over the world, and they come back and they don't tell anybody about it. I would like them to go individually. I can't afford to send everybody, but then I want them to become teachers. So turn the learner into a teacher and watch the investment grow. It's amazing. But if you go in thinking, listen, I'm privileged, they have invested in me, and my job when I go back to my team is to teach my colleagues. So everybody is a learner and a teacher. It's the two. And it's a responsibility. And you think about it. See, what that will do is when you go, you won't only be listening for yourself, but you'll be taking notes for your teammates because you want them to look good, not just yourself.
Yeah. See, when organizations invest in individual capacity building, believing it will help in strengthening the organization, I don't think every time it succeeds. Sometimes it fails. So where and why it fails, and how can we improve that?
Well, back to my last answer. Why it fails is because it's costly. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, and the money gets spent very quickly. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And what happens is it dead ends. People come back, and the knowledge is power. So they hold on to the knowledge for themselves. They don't share it. There's no knowledge sharing culture. Okay. And so what happens is it's good for the individual. Maybe they will get a promotion now because they know more than the other person.
Right.
But for the organization, for the team, it's useless. Where it works, where it makes a huge difference is, again, if the person going understands their responsibility to just not hold on to the knowledge, but to share the knowledge that they go and get individually.
The more you share, the more you grow.
Yes, knowledge is the only asset that gains value by sharing. It's the only thing.
Well said.
Everything else loses value. I don't know, if you buy a car, the minute you buy the car, it loses value.
Yeah.
Knowledge, when shared, grows in value. And if we understand that, then we know how to grow it as an investment. That makes a world of difference, especially when you have to go through championing of change. That makes a huge difference.
So we have been talking about learning and development, right? And today everybody is looking at making their organization a learning organization.
Yes.
Right? So can you help us to understand how it happens, a learning organization? And can you give some examples of how organizations adapted this learning practice and they became successful?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I mean, I'll take you back to the year 2000, and in Canada we had just let go 50,000. There was a downsizing of 50,000 employees, managers, executives, frontline staff. We lost 50,000 people in one budget cut, and the reaction was, how are we going to survive going forward? We lost all of this richness, and the top leader said, we need to create a learning organization. And so that's when I spent about 5 years working on this very thing, creating a learning organization. Now, let's just put this in perspective. What is a learning organization? So first of all, it's when people constantly reflect on the results, not just the activities, okay? They're focused on the results. Mistakes are examined, not condemned. So we actually have risk tolerance instead of risk aversion in a learning organization. Right. We see everything as an opportunity to learn something, to grow the organization. Okay, that's a big difference from how it used to be. Command and control, that's no longer the approach, and certainly not in 2026. It doesn't work. And then, in large organizations, everybody works in silos. Well, in a learning organization, they're connected, and they're always sharing. Even though on the surface they don't seem to have anything in common, often they're dealing with the very same client, the very same people. And when they start talking to each other, it creates more learning. okay, and the organization. And then you have to institutionalize these practices. And then leaders model curiosity. So I spent a lot of time teaching people how to ask questions. Not give answers, but are you asking the right questions? And certainly every time something big is done, you need to sit down and analyze how it went. Of course, I can tell you, the idea made a lot of progress in some parts of my world, but others are still, like dinosaurs, have not learned, are still measuring activities, not looking at results, not doing any kind of post-mortem of any kind. Now, you've asked me, have I seen it work in practice? Actually, I did. UNICEF is an example. They have institutionalized after-action reviews. So after any project, they bring all the actors together, not just the managers. They in a room, and they lift the stone, and they're very candid and honest, and it's honest feedback. And then they've linked their insights to program redesign. So it's like a loop, okay? Yeah. I will tell you that one of the examples I have cited many times is actually Balavikasa. I mean, I've been tracking you, following you, seeing that, and I've seen up close a little bit, and I've watched after every event, after every major program initiative, you bring all the team together, the most junior to the most senior, and the people actually have an opportunity to share, and people are taking notes and writing and thinking, etc., and it actually influences. That's a learning organization. It's connected, it's a loop, and that's how it works.
So we talk about, best learnings from within the organization.
Yes.
So what are the best ways of documenting these learnings?
Well, first let me speak to the importance of doing that.
Yeah.
One of the things I have found, especially in North America, is people have stopped taking notes. And they simply come to a meeting and they walk away and they forget 5 minutes after the meeting. So to me, it's mission critical to document the learning, but not only to document, to go back and review it. And so there should be a second meeting or a second opportunity to say, now what does this mean? And my formula is what, so what, now what. Okay, so what? That's documenting the learning. So what? Why is this important? What can we draw from it? And now what? What are we going to do with this learning? Okay. If all it is taking notes and putting it in the file, that's nobody. But people need to read and take notes and reflect. There needs to be time for reflection. And that's the time and space that we need.
So we have been discussing the importance of learning, especially the teams in the organization. What are the best ways of learning, and which is the important method?
Okay, well, there's many pathways. There's more than one road. So it starts with an individual doing self-learning. So that means reading, taking an interest, watching, monitoring, going on YouTube. The beauty today with technology is in your hand. You have a hugely powerful means of going to knowledge sources everywhere. So self-learning is one. Peer learning is very powerful. For example, I do a lot of peer-to-peer coaching. And I did a session yesterday where people are learning from each other. Okay? They're sharing their experience among themselves, and there's aha moments. Aha, I did not know that. Yeah. Of course, team-based learning. Some things are best learned together. So that's one. We have external training that's still of value. Coaching, mentoring programs are often. Job shadowing is another one. Now, which ones are best for who? Generally speaking, frontline staff like the peer learning, okay, and they like the on-the-job training. That's what they like. They want something that's going to be immediately useful to them and doing their job immediately after the session. The managers, they like to learn as a team, and they like to have time to reflect on their leadership and what it means for them. Whereas the senior leaders, they like networking, and they like strategic learning. So adapting the method. Now you've asked me, is there a best path? The simple answer is no. It depends on what the need is, okay? And the rule of thumb for me is simple skills, formal training. Whereas complex, it's more social and experiential. So I do a lot of experiential learning with senior leaders so that they can actually find out how to apply it in the real world.
So, in the learning methods, external learning
Yes.
versus internal learning.
Yes.
Where do we need to invest our efforts?
Okay, I think it's a combination of both. If you only have one or the other, I think after a while it becomes less effective. So often I combine the two. So for example, I'm doing a session in the next few weeks where I'm bringing in an external speaker to reinforce some principles that have been presented by internal trainers, so that the two worlds are saying that. And you see, then the learner sits there and says, it must be true, because internally they're saying that, and externally it's been validated. So I think the best designs have a combination of the two. Some elements internal, occasional outside a speaker or facilitator, and then back to internal.
So there is no blueprint. It depends on.
Depends on what you're trying to achieve. And if you start with the challenge and work your way back, you will probably be successful.
Yeah.
If you just keep pushing things because, often I meet people who say, I have a very, very good speaker on this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. You need to start with the challenge.
Yeah. So, Richard, we have been talking about learning, investment, all these things, and we agree it's very, very important. But what would be the measurement indicators? How do we measure this? And then what we need to measure and what we should not measure?
That's the $100 million question back home as well. Okay, I get asked this all the time. We talk about investment. Well, what's the ROI, the return on investment? What are you measuring? What can you show me to prove? And to be absolutely truthful with you, to me, you either believe that learning is going to improve outcomes or you don't. And if you don't, forget it. You'll never convince a person of that. But if you truly believe that human capacity can be developed through learning, okay, then there are things you can look at, but they're not the things that we typically measure. What we typically measure is attendance. How many people went to the course? How many, we count heads, and we think that's it. What you want to do, especially when you're trying to lead change and transformation, is you want to see, have there been any changes in behavior? Have there, thanks to your learning, okay? Has the decision making improved, both in terms of quality and of speed? You want to be looking at the consistency of the practices across the different silos. You want to be looking at the ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. Now, those are very hard to measure numerically, so you have to have a combination of qualitative and quantitative metrics that you measure and that you look at. And remember, you'll never be able to draw a straight line between whatever course and if these things are improving, but you will be able to see a dotted line, which means you'll see that it was a contributing factor in people actually getting that. So if I give you an example, I was in charge of changing a culture at Service Canada. It was called Service Canada. Basically, it's the Human Resources Department of the government. And people were used to pushing their programs onto the Canadian people, and now they were told to be citizen-centered and actually listen to the people and do that. And I brought them to one place. Actually, 15,000 people over the course of 6 months came to the learning, and it was like a boot camp. Okay, they had to unlearn the old way of being pushers and learn the new way of listening. And what happened was miraculous. We actually managed to see behavioral change, and where learning was given credit is the satisfaction rate of Canadians with the services was at 5.2 when we started. It was at 8.9 after a year after the learning. So that's how, to me, you measure, but don't expect it to be a perfect science.
Can you differentiate? Because when we invest in training programs, we expect results in performance by the staff.
Yep.
What type of training programs we expect immediate results? What type of training programs we should wait for little long term to see the benefits?
Rome wasn't built in one day, okay? So you need to be patient. But that doesn't mean you need to sit back and wait for the results to come. There are many, many things you can do to actually put an enzyme in the process so that the results come faster. And it's not enough just to train and then wait for the result at the other end. You have to train and then you have to sustain and remind and refresh. And sometimes the very best thing, and I'm going to go back to the example I just gave you, on top of the learning, we had a communications campaign. So it's like the air cover for we wanted to change the culture. So we put posters in every workplace to reinforce the learning so that when people walk in and, oh yes, I remember now, I'm supposed to act this way or behave this way, etc. So you don't have to just sit. Don't expect overnight. But if you are going to look at it 6 months, a year down the road, don't just sit there and wait. Be proactive and weave the communication strategy and the learning strategy together with the training strategy and watch the flowers bloom.
We do a lot of training programs. So can you give an example of a training program which did not produce the benefit that we intended? And then what could be the reasons why they fail?
Well, I have a very good example. I mean, a lived example, one which I had to be very humble and learn from. Back in the year 2000, okay, we found out through a survey that 20% of people in the public service of Canada had been victims of harassment. It was a shock to us that 20% of our workers had at some point in their career been victims of harassment, not necessarily sexual harassment, but harassment of some kind. And there was a panic inside. Richard, please come up with a training program, a learning program that will be given to all public servants. So I put together a very big effort, working with all of the different departments, a massive training program. And we spent a lot of money on it. And we put everybody on mandatory training to prevent harassment from now on. And over the next 4 years, many people went and took the course. And the satisfaction scores were very high. I was proud to go to meeting and say we had 8 or 9 out of 10, etc. And then we did the survey the next time, 4 years later, and more people had been victims of harassment, not less. So why did it fail? I tell you why it failed. First, there was no link really to the work. It was a separate from the work. Secondly, managers were not involved in this initiative. They were simply told to send their staff, and they did not participate in the shaping the learning, or etc. There was no follow-up. They just went to the course and then went back to their job. And so nothing really changed, you see. And they got very cynical about it. And then all the organizational constraints that were contributing to the harassments remained. There was no attempt to fix anything. I definitely learned from that. And in terms of the people now who design these types of initiatives, there's many lessons learned. They need to design for the situation, okay? And they need to involve the managers, involve the teams. We say back in Canada, bring them into the tent. Do that, and then work with colleagues in communications, in policy, in all of those different areas so that all the pieces are aligned. Because if they're out of step, nothing will change. You need to work together for it to happen. And that did not happen, and it was a massive fail that I experienced personally.
Okay. So what you mean to say is even when you design good programs with good intentions,
yes,
they may not bring good results.
Correct.
Right? So can you suggest when somebody is designing a training program,
Yeah.
what do they need to consider when they're designing a program to different stakeholders?
Well, as I said, they need to connect to the rest. It's not just in isolation, that's for sure. But they also can't get ahead of the system, okay? The system is what's not working well. It's not the training that's not working well. There are barriers and conditions happening. And if you train people to prevent harassment and you haven't changed the basics, it's going to happen again and again and again. And then what will happen is the training will be laughed at. The training will not be taken seriously. And people will say, you say this, your mouth says this, but the actions don't reflect the words. So What I'm saying is designers can't work by themselves in a room away from they have to go and sit with the people who are leading and understand the challenge and then connect what they're doing to the actual challenge. And it starts from the challenge and work your way back.
See, today the world is changing very fast, right? Everything is changing very quickly. So, in this situation, how important it is for an organization to promote unlearning and relearning, and what are the best practices to promote unlearning and relearning?
Well, I mean, I think that's an excellent question, unlearning and relearning. And we tend to take for granted that people can unlearn, and it's actually much harder to unlearn than to learn.
I agree.
Because best practices or practices are built over time. And the actual word for this is culture, your culture. And my experience with trying to move a culture or change the direction of a culture, it is very, very challenging to do. And old habits die hard is the expression that we use. So it is mission critical in organizations to unlearn the things that are no longer relevant or who might turn out to be untrue. There are some assumptions that were made 20 years ago. We made assumptions and we built programs, learning of all kinds, based on those assumptions. Those assumptions have gone out the window. They've changed. And so you need to take time to allow people, give them permission to unlearn. Because they feel somehow that this is, they put a lot of effort, and you must honor this is not a criticism of them in any way, but in order for them to unlearn, they need to feel the permission. And then to relearn, don't take for granted either that immediately they will like the new way or the new approach or the new direction. They probably will take a lot of time to do that. Many times I have unlearned and relearned only to find out that they've unlearned what I learned, okay, so what I was teaching them. So it takes time. Now, the question you asked was, okay, how to make it possible to
Promote.
unlearn.
Yeah.
And I believe it's regular time for reflection. There's not enough time for reflection. What did we assume back then that is no longer true? And usually it's not the whole. It's a part of the whole. And so to be very specific about what is it that we're trying to undo or unlearn or change in terms of what we see to be true. And then to create safe space to ask questions, to criticize even, to say, I'm not happy. Give space for the discomfort that comes with that. Because some people are very attached to the old ways, to the ways of doing things, right? And then you need shorter feedback loops. Shorter feedback loops in times of unlearning and relearning. So as opposed to teaching them something today and checking in 6 months, check in 2 weeks, check in 3 weeks, check in 4 weeks. Shorten the feedback loop. And then try some experiments. Try some with the new ways. Try some experiments so that people get the, quote, the hang of it, that they like. And then get the senior leaders to model this behavior of unlearning and relearning. People really, really follow very closely their leadership. So those would be my best ideas for this unlearning and relearning.
I think that will be very encouraging if the leader is really unlearning and learning himself. That should become a culture.
Yes, and I'm glad you opened the door to leadership because it changes all the time. Okay, in Canada, we do a survey every year of Canadians, public and private sector, and we asked them in 1989, what was the most important quality of a leader back in 1989? And you won't be surprised to learn that in that time, it was autonomy was the most valued quality of a leader back in 1989. Autonomy meaning just do what I tell you to do. Stand behind me. I lead from the front. Follow my example. Never get ahead of me. That was the leader that people valued back in 1989. Today, last year, the university did the survey again. And that quality is now number 25 out of 25 with less than 0.07% of people saying that's important for the leader. Today's leader, the number one quality is authenticity. Somebody who tells the truth. Somebody who's not afraid to unlearn and relearn. Somebody who walks the talk, we say. Somebody whom we can trust. That's what people want. And they want that, somebody who's real. And somebody who's not afraid to use the 8 magic words that guarantee the staff will walk with you. And the 8 magic words are, I have a problem, can you help me? To show their vulnerability and actually invite ideas from the team. And that's how you unlearn and relearn. And when the leaders model that, it can be a game changer.
See, there are so many professionals working in different institutions. How important it is for them to invest their time, their resources, to build their professional journey, irrespective of whether their organization is investing or not.
Well, I think you used the key word is professional. In my mind, if you look at the definition of professional, it's never the status quo. You're always trying to be better and to do better. And it's not something that the organization is responsible for. It's something that you want to be at the top of your game as a professional.
It's your business.
Yes, I will never forget a young woman who came to my office just before I retired with a master's degree from university to work in policy. She came into my office and sat in front of my desk because I want to meet the new team members right away. You know, on the first day, I want to make sure they feel welcome. And she sat down in the chair in front of me and she said, Mr. Rochefort, she says, I'm so happy. My learning days are over. I'm now joined the public service. I finished my master's degree. I only have 30 years before I can take my pension. And you know, I started to pretend to laugh because I didn't think it was funny. And I started to shuffle the papers on my desk, and she leaned over the desk and she says, sir, what are you looking for? I says, I'm looking for the paper that says that we gave you this job because I don't think you understood the job. This is your first day and you're telling me your learning days are over? No, your learning days are just beginning. And as a professional, my expectation of you is that you will take that mission very seriously and you will constantly monitor the evolving context, the changes, etc. You will contribute, but you will also try and learn from others, learn through your program. And you are responsible, first and foremost, for your learning journey. Now, the organization has to meet you halfway, give you the time and the space to do it, find the resources, the money, etc. But you're in the driver's seat here, and I'm expecting you to do that, okay? So that's very, very important. And now, how to do that? Well, I think try to link the learning to the real challenges that you're facing. Don't just go in a catalog and choose whatever course you think is the flavor of the month. That's not it. What are the challenges and where are you finding it challenging or difficult for yourself? And go and upskill. Maybe you need to learn how to influence more. Maybe you learn how to adapt more. What are those things that are missing from your skill sets that would allow you to give a better result to the organization? That's what matters. You need to seek feedback. So it's not enough just to do your job. You have to open yourself up to feedback on how you're doing, on your performance, and listen very carefully what people are telling you. And even those whom you don't necessarily like, they will have something to contribute to your thing. You need to build learning networks with your peers so that you can learn from each other. Get involved in a community of practice and treat learning as part of the job, not just a nice to do activity. So that's my advice to young professionals, but it's also my advice to anyone who is part of an organization and wants to be the best that they can be. To be a professional means to really, really focus on your learning and development. It's mission critical.
That's very important what you said, you know.
Yes.
Everyone needs constant learning to be updated. Otherwise, we are outdated.
We are outdated.
That's why, you know, even in my training programs, I tell every participant, forget about your organization, whom you are representing.
Yes.
Learn for yourself.
Correct. That's where it starts.
Be selfish.
Be selfish in this area.
Yeah. Concentrate in the training program, improve your knowledge and skills, you will benefit.
Absolutely.
And when you benefit, your
The organization benefits. That's it. It's a win-win.
Yeah. Don't come to the training program saying that, you know, I'm obliged to participate because my boss sent me for a training program. No. It's an opportunity for you to build yourself.
No, take ownership.
Take ownership.
Voila.
One last question. So there are so many topics coming around. So many coaches coming around. Now coaching is a big business for so many people. So what are the common topics which are on high demand or on high importance in the current world?
number one in the charts, and I'll only give you that one because it's so big at the moment. It's taken over as the main one, is how to navigate the rapids of uncertainty. You know, change is one thing. Living in uncertainty is far more difficult for an organization and for an individual to live in uncertainty. I'm going to give you an example. Supposing I was a doctor and you came to me and I said, I put electrodes on your body, and I say to you, in the next minute, 100% certain that you will feel a small electric shock. Your body will respond with stress. There will be stress. 100% chance. But imagine if you came in and I put the same electrodes on you, and now I say to you, in the next minute, there's a 50% chance, 1 out of 2, that you will feel an electric shock. You will feel 20 times more stress if it's 1 time out of 2 than if I guarantee you. So dealing with change is important, and people need to continue to learn how to navigate change, learn how to deal with change, learn how to lead change, etc. But the number one topic right now in Canada, but all over the world, everywhere I've looked, is how to deal with rapidly changing, uncertain times where you don't know if it's going to go this way or that way or this way or that way. You don't know how it's going to turn out. And all of the behaviors that come out. And most of us only have a certain tolerance for uncertainty. The brain craves predictability. And when it doesn't have it, it triggers stress. And when it triggers stress, people can develop anxiety, and from anxiety they can get very depressed, and that can totally undo all the good work you might have been doing for years. So my advice in closing is, try and help people develop more tolerance for uncertainty so that they can actually contribute to the mission and vision of whatever organization they are part of.
Wow, that's very important thing what you said, especially in the fast-changing world, uncertainty is inevitable. Everybody's facing that.
It's hard.
And having trouble to face that. And I think what you have suggested is to prepare people towards coping up with uncertainties. Right?
Coping with uncertain times, I think, is the skill now that makes the biggest difference in the workplace, but also in large, small organizations, development agencies, everywhere. You never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Good. Thank you so much, Richard. Very, very inspiring from your journey to what you have contributed today. I think, all what you have shared is from your rich experience. Definitely our audience will inspire from you. And we thank you so much for taking your time, being with us, contributing your knowledge, and inspiring our audience, right? So thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Vandanam.
Vandanam, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. All the best to everyone.
Thank you. Namaste.